Alright, question 29 is a unit circle question, and I know that because this is an angle found on the unit circle that I memorized, and it's asking me to evaluate trig functions. So the first step in using the unit circle is we need to locate the exact location that it's talking about. So you got several different ways to go about this. I'll give you a few different tips. If you know that pi over 2 radians is equivalent to 90 degrees, just that we're going clockwise because it's negative, well, you know what a right angle looks like, so starting at 0, you could go this direction 90 degrees, and that would be one way to locate negative pi over 2. Another way you could go about finding that is you could find an angle coterminal to it. So if you add 2 pi and get a common denominator, you can figure out that negative pi over 2 is coterminal to 3 pi over 2. So if you really have the unit circle memorized, you know exactly where 3 pi over 2 is, and it's in the same location. Now, negative pi over 2 is this angle, and 3 pi over 2 is that angle. So we're certainly not talking about the same angle, but we are talking about the same location on the unit circle. So for our purposes of this question, it's going to work out the same. Alright, so that's the first step. Locating negative pi over 2. Your second step is you just have to have all of these coordinate pairs memorized for the unit circle. But the easiest ones are the ones where you just go directly to the right, up, left, or down. Because if all my length of 1, unit circle length of 1, is going straight down, then it's not going left or right, and it's going down 1. Alright, the third thing you need for unit circle is you need to know that the cosine of that angle is the x value on the unit circle, and the y value on the unit circle is the sine of that angle. So it wants me to find all 6 trig functions So the 3 main ones and the reciprocals. Cosine's reciprocal with secant. Cosecant is reciprocal of sine, and cotangent and tangent are reciprocals. Okay, well, I've got 2 of my 6 answers already. I've got the main 2. Cosine at that angle is 0. Sine at that angle is negative 1. Alright, so that's where most of the work should be done. Now, there's 4 others, but we can figure out the other 4 trig functions based on these 2. That's why it's really important to be able to get sine and cosine first. With tangent, we can use its difference quotient, and we can always say the tangent of that angle is going to be the sine of that angle divided by the cosine of that angle, which in this case is negative 1 divided by 0. Well, we can't divide by 0. We can't have 0 in our denominator, so this is undefined. Going this direction, the reciprocal of 0. Well, if you flip 0 over, 0 is going to be in your denominator, so this guy is also undefined. You can flip over negative 1 to get its reciprocal. Reciprocal of negative 1 is also negative 1. And the last one, cotangent, if you're looking at this and you're trying to think, well, what's the reciprocal of undefined? That's not too helpful. Instead, down here, think of this reciprocal. And just because you can't have 0 in your denominator, you can certainly have 0 in your numerator, just that gives you 0. So to sum it up, step 1, you've got to be able to figure out where that angle is. Step 2, you've got to have the coordinate pair memorized at that angle. Step 3, you have to know that cosine of that angle is the x value and the sine of that angle is the y value. And then finally, step 4, how to use that information to get the others. Tangent will always be sine divided by cosine, secant the reciprocal of cosine, cosecant the reciprocal of sine, and cotangent the reciprocal